Hello and welcome along to another episode of this FM19 story, The Head Coach with me, Daniel. It's Season 7, Episode 5, and the eagle-eyed viewers among you may have noticed we're back just 6 days after that win against West Brom. We haven't even played another game yet, and that's because I need your help. We had a discussion after the last episode, a few of you were down in the comments, where we were trying to decide whether to go to Wolves or stay here at Barnsley. We'd sort of edged towards staying at Barnsley, because even though Wolves were in the Premier League, they were right down in a relegation scrap and we were almost certainly going to be there next year. Although Wolves are still a bigger club in real life at the moment, they haven't got that same financial clout in game and have lost a lot of their quality players too. But the reason we're back early is because we've now got a third option as well, and this one has really got me torn 50-50. In terms of the club, they're absolutely huge reputation wise. They're a monstrous club in a big catchment area, but unfortunately they've had some difficult times in recent years, including in real life. So I've got the chance to turn them around and get them up the Premier League. They are in the Premier League. They're doing okay. They're comfortably in mid-table. But there's so much potential to make them a monstrous club if we get the right sort of investment and backing. So although we're 9 points clear of third in the Championship with Barnsley and absolutely loving life at the club, what I'm going to do today is show you each of the three clubs. Obviously we've got more detail on Barnsley. And I'm going to put a poll up in the eye above and down in the description for you guys to have a vote. And let me know where you want me to go. I've just about think I've made my mind up, but obviously you could sway me. But first things first, before we do this, I'm not going to promise if the poll result is 40%, 35-30, that I'm going to go to the club that's 40%, because that's fairly narrow and I'll probably go with my instincts then. If there's a clear 70-80% winner, then we'll go for that. We've got the option of staying at Barnsley, which is one that I'm pretty certain I'd enjoy. I'm not going to think about Wolves too much, but obviously if enough of you want to see it, it's a fairly realistic option. And then this third club is the one I'm potentially edging towards and I'm completely torn with Barnsley. So let's go and have a look at the inbox to see the latest offer. It's Newcastle United, none other. A club we managed in our Christmas series for those of you who followed on FM19 Touch. But this is a completely different kettle of fish. Again, they're offering us £40,000 a week like Wolves, but it's an additional year on the contract as well. Thinking realistically and financially, that could be something very important for us. So we're going to go and have a look at the club. There is one big negative with Newcastle. I'm not sure if it's still Mike Ashley in charge, but either way there's not a transfer budget, though I haven't looked to see if that's just because they've invested in the summer. So let's go and have a look at the club in more detail. They're in a slightly more comfortable position in the Premier League. They've got a few recognisable names and a few that are still there from real life. So let's go and look at the Premier League table. Wolves are down in 18th on 13 points. Newcastle 5 points and 3 places higher, and obviously have got a bigger catchment area, a huge stadium and facilities, so it's just a case of deciding between the two. I just want to go and have a look at their transfer history this season to see why we haven't got a budget, and to be fair, they've spent 35 million, so it's not like they didn't have any money at the start. If we go to the previous years, last year they spent 70 and sold 59. The year before, 53 to 37. So they are getting a net spend each year. We've got to be fair to that. In previous years, they've always spent by sort of 10 or 15 million more, and then back to 30 in the first couple. So no complaints there. It looks like they've just spent their transfer budget for this year. So let's go and have a look at the facilities at the club to see how they stand at the moment. Superb training, youth facilities, established youth recruitment, a 52,000 all-seater stadium at St James's Park, a beautiful ground I've been lucky enough to go to in the FA Cup with Luton. So generally the club, they're expected to finish 10th, so they must have a fairly good squad. 35,000 season ticket holders, and Alex Iwobi, who they signed, is already in the favoured personnel list. So we've got a few things to work with if we go here. We're going to go through a couple of the key players just to see if they're as good as we hope. Alex Iwobi's 28 now. He's a very good all-round player and looks like a proper talent at the club. 120,000 a week, so we're talking about a completely different level of budget there. There's some brilliant players here. There's some names we recognise, the likes of Callum Wilson's getting on a bit now, but also the skipper Jamal Lascelles is still there. Jose Perez, who was a bit of a hero in our FM19 touch save, and just a few really solid players and a big squad. The one I'm really interested at looking at before we go though is this guy, Adriano Levinas, I think that is. He's a 19-year-old Brazilian winger worth 12.5 million, so he's one we've really got to pin our hopes on in the future. Let's look and see what he's like. Oh, he's very good. A wonder kid on the right wing. A bit like Edwards we've got on loan at Barnsley. The only difference being Newcastle own this player. So that's got me a little bit more excited. I'm going to go and have a quick look at the under-23s. They're a Premier League club. We'd know everything. Yannick Touré's still there. A pretty average youngster. And they've got Kenneth Effiong, who was a youngster at Barnsley and was sold before we got to the club. There's not much talent other than that, but there's a real big squad there and a solid Premier League one at that. There's lots of experience, so as the squad gets older, we'd get the chance to regenerate it. And more realistically in the head coach, they're a club we could take all the way to the top, not one where we'd have to take a stepping stone to do it. We'd get natural progression like we had at Barnsley, and we could move them forward to the top 6 of the Premier League. So that's our first option. Let me know your thoughts on that. Obviously the poll will be up and running, so just go and have a vote. Let me know where you'd like to see me. It's probably the one I'm slightly edging towards, because Newcastle are such a monstrous club, and we have to be realistic like this series stated. From the start we said we'd take up the offers that were too good to refuse, and this Newcastle one could be just that. But moving back to our second option, which is obviously to stay at Barnsley, if we go and look at the general info, we've got some fairly noteworthy players ourselves now. We've got to remember, one of the things we love in Football Manager is having youngsters come through who are homegrown at the club and playing in the first team. So if we look here, we've got Tom Burton, the centre-half. He's been scoring goals, playing first choice, a rating of nearly 7.2 from centre-half. A really good youngster that's come through at Barnsley. And then Niall Goodwin, who Newcastle have actually tried to sign a couple of times. We wouldn't mind being reunited with him if we do move. He's a 4-star midfielder, and at 21 has been an absolute stalwart for us at Barnsley. A real hero for the club. And most importantly, obviously with Barnsley, we haven't won many trophies in this career. We often got promoted via the playoffs, just fluttered around mid-table at certain clubs, and always been overachieving just to be in the top half or the playoff push. And obviously the first 2 clubs we got sacked, losing a cup final at Dungannon at the same time. So here we've got a real chance to win a trophy and a championship title, but realistically, can we hold on from Watford? Are we going to slip away with our smaller squad? And will we then have the financial clout to stay up in the Premier League like we've got a really good chance to do with Newcastle or Wolves? They're the questions I've got to ask myself. I'm really loving managing at Barnsley, but I'm starting to think it probably is the least realistic option here. I'm just thinking about sticking around because I'm enjoying it so much. Obviously, we've got to think about the facts we'll be earning more than 3 times the amount, although at this level it becomes a bit irrelevant as they're all plenty of money to live on. But they're the first 2 options. The third one is Wolves. We mentioned them in the last episode. We're just going to go and have a look at the squad so you can see what we mean. The one thing that isn't a selling point for me here is they don't have many of their own youngsters. The only 2 we can see there are Barley Mumba at 23, and then they've got a 21-year-old Egyptian striker called Salah. Not the Mohamed Salah, but another one with the same name. He's not a great finisher though. He's just very good and athletic physically. So I'm not quite as attracted to this squad. It's a similar big squad with plenty of experience, but it's not quite as deep, and there's not too many talented youngsters who we can look forward to in the future. In terms of the club, they've got nothing financially. Their finances are only okay. They're not in Europe, and perhaps more concerningly for me, they've been on a downward slide gradually over the years. So the 2021 season they finished 7th, then they finished 9th, then 11th, then 15th, and now they're 18th. Does that show that investment's starting to go out of the club? Let's go and have a look and see what the situation is. So they've actually made a transfer profit this summer, which is a little bit of a concern that they've got no money left in the transfer budget despite making a profit. The year before, they spent a lot of money there, mainly on 3 or 4 experienced players, which doesn't seem to have been the best of moves. The year before that, they sold 119 million and gained 80. So that's where their extra spend came from the following season. They lost Ruben Neves, who obviously is an absolute stalwart. He's gone to Manchester United as a rotation option. So that's just shown that they've not actually invested in the last 3 years. They're 15 million up the year before that, and then we've got the big spending in the first few years. So I've just got to go and have a look at the club. We want to look at the playing staff. I'm all over the place there. Who's in charge in terms of chairman and things like that? Let's see what the jobs are. So we've got a Scot and an Englishman. There's none of the Portuguese investment that was there previously, and I think as a result of that, it's very much that the investment has stopped at the club. We'll just go back to Newcastle to check it wasn't still Mike Ashley, because obviously that could be the one thing that puts us off. If we have a little look, work. It's not. It's a couple of other Englishmen. Norman Dempsey's the man in charge. So there's no sign of Mike Ashley at the club, which is good. If we go and have a look at the club just to see what's happened the last few years, again on a downward slide the last couple, but the lowest of those being 11, and they've been a bit of a yo-yo club in the middle. So they've never been lower than 11th or 12th, and I think as a result of that, they're probably a stronger club. So I think I have made up my mind that I'm probably going to go to Newcastle, but I want you guys to have a vote just so we can see what the general consensus is and how you guys feel. But I think sticking to the realism of this save, I have to take on Newcastle, but I'm still tempted a little bit to stay at Barnsley. It's all a bit tricky and so many options I didn't expect to have. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Have a vote in the poll and tell me in the comments why you've done so. I think it will probably be Newcastle, just to warn you. As I said at the start, if the poll's relatively close, I'm not just going to go on the one that's top when it's by 2 or 3%. If there's a clear 80-90% winner, we could realistically take it. I don't think Wolves is an option because they're a club in freefall with no investment and haven't got the best squad. But there's an option there. Do you want me to stay at Barnsley or go to Newcastle? And we'll see the outcome in the next episode. I'll make the final decision, but I want you guys to have your say. Let me know why you think I should stay or go, and then I'll talk about my decision in the next episode. I will take your comments into account, but as you can tell, I'm pretty much leaning in one direction. But if you did enjoy this episode, please put a thumbs up on it. As I said, get down in the comments and let me know why you think I should stay or go. I will take your views into account, and even if I don't make the decision you guys agree with, I'll address them in the next episode as to why I've done it. It might just be that the law's too big to go to Newcastle. We've got a chance to triple our money. We've got a chance to manage a huge club. Historically, they're a massive team, and we've got a chance to restore them to former glories with a massive following at the stadium every week. Subscribe to the channel for daily FM19 content from my 2 long-term stories. This one, the head coach, where we may well have a new club to look forward to in the next episode. I'm 80% sure, but there's still that little bit of me that's got an attachment to Barnsley. For the first time in this series, I've fallen in love with a club and don't want to leave them halfway through a season, but I don't really know if I've got a choice now. There's also my one club story where we don't have any of these problems. That's part of the furniture with Torquay United, where we're taking them from the lowest playable league all the way to the top of English and European football. And then there's my weekly FIFA 19 lower league career with Crew Alexandra. The latest episode of that was out yesterday at 4:30. But a massive thanks for watching and your continued support with the series, and I'll see you next time where I've hopefully made a decision that I won't live to regret.